It is, good people. We back with another Literary Dummies book discussion for you. It's your boy, Alex. You can follow me on Twitter at FudgeBars and on Instagram at Fudge_bars with a Z, and my co-host, Kevin.
And you can follow me at Scotty Get Down with 2 N's, 1 on Instagram, no Twitter.
I keep telling them, change that. You didn't even, Clubhouse about to be out, you're not even on Twitter, see?
No, Instagram. I'm start taking modeling pictures soon.
You're not attractive.
Doesn't matter.
Alright, if that's how you feel, we're not going to talk about your looks.
2020.
2020 about to be over.
You can't shame people on their looks in 2020.
Looks.
There are people with one eye that model and have no eye patch.
We're gonna get in. We're gonna get into our next book. This time we're gonna be discussing the book Bloodland by Miss Audra Thomas. Is it
Russell?
Sorry. Audra Russell. She was born in New Jersey, East New Brunswick, I think, or at least raised in the Brunswick area. She now resides in Glen Burnie. She has 2 undergrad degrees in journalism and a master's in education. And she's also the host of the Between the Reads podcast. Look that up wherever your podcasts are available.
It's very interesting, actually.
See, it's a good podcast if you like books, and it's a black woman. You gotta support black women at all costs, in all walks of life. We're gonna be reviewing her book, Bloodland. It's a horror that deals with generational trauma. Think in the veins of a Beloved type, like a Beloved with some fantasy element, more fantasy elements, more horror, ghosts, all that.
It's like a Skeleton Key kind of book. If y'all saw that movie, Skeleton Key, back in the day.
Before we get into the synopsis, I want to say that I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and y'all should support. But I want to talk about the book overall.
Before we do that, can we talk about the book and how it came?
Yes.
Y'all don't understand. When we get books sent to us, they be beat up, they be falling off the table.
He is making everything up he just said right now. We have bought one indie author's book, and it was mailed through Amazon. That has nothing to do with, she mailed this herself, and it's different. She gave us an autograph. She gave us 2 bookmarks apiece.
Personalized autograph. Personalized autograph.
So
look at the book. Look at it. That's great.
It just felt real good to get the book like this.
This book standing up on the table.
Because I have something behind it. But it came in a great package. It was amazing. Thank you, Miss Audra. Take note, those of you that we might review in the future, and just in general, if you are a person that's not relying on Amazon or something like that. Because first off, Amazon going to try to get you. Amazon trying to cheat niggas. Flat out. Bezos, I'm talking about you, just trying to cheat the writers like you cheating everybody else. You're not going to get into that conversation. Oh yeah, my bad. We're really not supposed to talk about Amazon. My fault, Joe. Don't know why I watch us anyway. So, but yes, the book came great. Bookmarks, it was amazing. Thank you. That was really, really dope. Now let's get into the book. I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis, how we felt about the book. Y'all already know I think you should get it, so y'all might not even get a whole out of 5. Just know you need to get the damn book.
I'm giving it a 4.9.
We're not at that point yet, and it ain't gonna be a 4.9.
Fun thing for me.
Bloodland is set in Maryland, not the Eastern Shore, on the Hermitage Plantation, out in Frederick County. If you know about that. I didn't know about that plantation specifically, but I had a prom at a plantation, and I ain't like that shit. White people, I'm gonna let you know, you wanna have parties at plantations? Don't invite your black friends. Like, we don't like it. We get, oh, it's not, but it was. It was, you know. And my family comes from like Northern Virginia and Maryland, so I hear plantation. I start, yo, how close was we? But it's set in on the La Hermitage plantation. It follows Teresa Simmons and her husband Paul. Say Teresa because she's a more important character. We following the woman, baby. Let's go. Gotta have your women as main characters sometimes, especially when the woman writes it. Historically, women have had to write men, and that's not cool. Even though they write men better than men write women. So Paul and Teresa are buying a house that was on the plantation, and like they're talking to the real estate agent, and the real estate agent is trying to like, yo, you shouldn't buy this house. Telling them immediately, don't buy this house. And a part of them feels like it's white guilt. Flat out says like she was trying to hide the white guilt, and maybe she just didn't want us to buy a plantation because she felt bad. But nah, this real estate agent has sold this house 7 times in 10 years. And the only reason she ain't sold it in the last 3 is because enough people heard what was going on. They move in. Teresa finds out the house is haunted by the ghost of a slave. Teresa is the only person in the house that can see her. Her husband, Paul, can't see her, and Paul is my nigga. If there is a book, if this book ever becomes a movie, I am trying out to be Paul. He's like a tech guy. I'm not necessarily a tech guy, but this is a great marriage. Black marriage specifically is just amazing. There's so much love and so much honesty without it feeling like stereotypical blacks. It's just a happy marriage with 2 people that happen to be black, and you can tell. So Teresa is being haunted and like telling Paul, and Paul is like, all right, whatever, you say your family has seen ghosts, so, but I thought you couldn't see them. And she's like, but I think I can now. He's going along with it even though he's still being skeptical. Teresa gets pregnant. Now that whole ghost shit not a game no more. Paul like, hold up, you pregnant, you can't be out here seeing ghosts and almost passing out every 2 days because you see a ghost. We find out that this ghost is a spirit of a slave that was on the plantation named Philel.
Yeah, it's Haitian.
Her name is Haitian. This historically, I almost was upset because I thought that this was just the author relying on just throwing Haitian out there because it's well known, but no. The La Hermitage plantation was actually a French and like Haitian plantation. So I was like, ooh.
She did her research.
She did her research. Something fierce. So house haunted, she's pregnant, eventually she finds out that this slave that has been haunting her is her ancestor. Throughout the way she finds this out, doing the whole ancestry, whole DNA stuff, she finds out who owned the plantation exactly, finds out that Philel was a slave, and then finds out through her visions that Philel forces her to go through, we find out that Philel had 2 kids that were taken from her immediately, like after birth. We find out that the father of those children was Master something with a V.
Thomas Vicendia.
Try to say it the way it should be said.
Thomas Vicendia.
I'm gonna say Thomas Vicendial, I guess. Something like that. We find out that that was the father of Philel's kids. Now we continue to go throughout all of this, we continue to go through Teresa's whole family tree in essence. She's now reconnected with a cousin named Marie, and on their side of the family we find out that her great-grandmother had an affair with a white man. They don't call it rape, or she doesn't call it rape, and I kind of get why. Because it's like, he's not forcibly raping her the same way Philel was, but he's treating her like shit, and she probably really don't want to do it. And she has kids by this man, and those kids just don't claim any part, like they can pass for white and don't claim any part of their black family. All of this generational trauma just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up until you get to Teresa and her quest to fix everything. And, you know, there's all the regular horror book elements, like that's the basic, this is what's going on. It all ends with Teresa freeing the spirits of not only Pharrell, but all of the slaves on the plantation. And we live happily ever after, or so you think.
So let's talk about the stuff that is the cons first. There's not too many of them because the book was 5. Let's start off with the family reunion. I was a tad bit confused, but I think I got it. Teresa's father's side is a side that could see all the visions. Now I think on her mother's side, only what?
Teresa's mother's side is the side of the family.
But Marie was from the father's side.
No, she wasn't.
Yes, she was.
I don't.
Teresa did stated a couple times ago she didn't know her father's side at all. That's when she started the family tree, and Marie was from the father's side.
But the family tree wouldn't. Why would Marie be from the father's side if she's going back to?
Listen, I know it's.
I think you're getting something confused.
Fine, let's skip that then. Let's skip it.
But there is the scene that after she meets her cousin Marie through ancestry, it's like almost immediate. There's like a 45 people family reunion, like a week later.
And they walk in there. Husband's okay with it. He's looking out the window like, yeah, this would be nice. I'm like, nope.
It just felt really fast. Like, I get it. We kind of have the same spiritual vibes, but nah, I don't know if that just felt a little off to me. And it kind of made the entire family tree a little bit more confusing. Because for a while, we couldn't tell if it was Teresa's grandmother who was raped or Pharrell. Like, we couldn't tell if Pharrell was supposed to be Teresa's grandmother or like her great-great-grandmother. We kind of had the generations off.
Yeah, it's great. I think her grandmother had an affair, which is why Teresa's mother was not liked by her grandmother. The great-grandmother was raped. So when the great-grandmother being raped, she was upset at her daughter, who was Flossie, which is Teresa's grandmother, for having an affair with a white man, saying, how dare you have an affair with a white man when I got raped by a white man? How could you even touch a white man? Bam. So that's one of the reasons why Teresa never even knew about her heritage. And then Teresa's mother, from probably that trauma that her mom had from not ever being accepted by her own mother, Teresa's mother does not accept herself at all.
They just tried to cover up a lot of family drama, and a lot of it is Teresa's mom. That's like a subplot going on, the mom and daughter making up. I really did like that, because I'm a sucker for father-son stuff, and we see that way more often.
Yeah,
there's way more movies where it's like, ooh, the father and son come back together. We rarely see it mother-daughter, and we rarely see it black mother and daughter.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, The Photograph kind of tried to do it. Crooklyn kind of.
A little bit.
Like, those are really the only two that I can think of. So it was dope to read that. The only other real issue I had was the end. So the book reads like not typically like a typical horror novel. I feel like it reads more like the novelization of a horror movie. You get all the aspects that you would see in a horror movie. Like, even the way it starts, it just reads like, oh, this is the setup for like a slasher film or a ghost movie. It just gives that feel. Whereas with horror, I'm used to reading more, I guess, suspenseful or more Stephen King type horror where everything takes 80 years to happen. And when it finally does, you're like, oh my God. You don't know if you like it because you lasted this long or because it's that good. Like, when it finally got good, I was like, oh my God. I've wasted like 3 months on this.
Yes.
But, so we get to what would be the final showdown in a horror movie.
Which is Thomas Vicendia.
Throughout this book, almost every scene that is supposed to scare you is done great. from the first time you see Philel, because for a long time we can't tell if Philel is a good or bad spirit. It's not until we find out from this random old lady, Cecile, that I loved, because I always like the random old wise characters that just show up, that Philel is like, nah, yo, she wants your help, and she wants to help you. Cool. But the final showdown, where we find out that Thomas was a guy who really trafficked slaves more than anything. So he had like these cells in the basement that he kept the slaves all up in. Now Teresa got to go down there with Cecile, or she got to go down there and have the final showdown. The lead up to it was great, because the lead up to it is they moved out the house because Paul was tired of dealing with this ghost shit, and they had an infant. And he's like, no, I'm not doing this shit no more. You out here passing out. You passed out every other day throughout your pregnancy because of this ghost. Now we have an infant and this ghost has touched my child. There's a scene where Philel picks up the baby and the baby starts crying and she freaks out because the baby's crying, and ghost freaking out ain't cool. But you don't want to hurt the baby, but ghost, she just missed her spirit babies at this point. So Paul goes to figure out, like, man, nah, I'm gonna go in here and check on the house while my wife ain't here and see if everything cool. And he goes in the basement and they say he sees some orange eyes. And Thomas, the slave master that ran the plantation, essentially says, get out. And then Paul leaves immediately.
Gets the fuck out.
He sees orange eyes and he's, I'm out, I'm not. And he goes to find Teresa, like, yo, you not going in that house. Like, so after that, Teresa like, man, no, we not selling this house. We keeping it in my family. This is history. I actually deserve a piece of it because I'm one of the slave master's descendants by blood. Nah. So they go. She goes with Cecile and Bree to have the final showdown. It all fell apart. It all fell apart, yo.
They went into the basement, and Cecile was basically putting up the magical tents, as I like to call them. The magical shield tents. Because it was described very well. Like, just so you can visualize this, magical shield tents, like, that are bathed in holy light. And then Teresa's grandmother comes out and did some Gandalf shit. It's like, you shall not pass, nigga. And he couldn't pass. So the white man turned around, he didn't want to leave. He said, put me back in this motherfucker, though.
Pretty much, like, they sang a gospel song. Like, she sang a gospel song with her grandmother, and that's how they won. And it's funny that I brought up Stephen King earlier, and I hope it's gonna come out as negative as I mean, but it was some Stephen King stuff, like, where it's just like, the power of positivity wins it all.
I wanted the white man to kill somebody in that scene.
I definitely wanted a death.
I wanted him to kill Cecile. I thought that was obvious. I thought it was setting up for the old wise lady to die. Because old wise lady can't be old and wise forever. She gotta die. She gotta pass on the old wise shit to Teresa. So I said, let's go.
Or Marie, like something like that. Because Marie was always down the cuts.
White man turned around in his nice suit and said, I'll be back later. I ain't worried about the shit.
Like, just like, yo, I'm coming back.
That's it. Like, what's going on?
And then all the slave spirits that are in the basement are free. Because the slave spirits that were in the basement that were being held were mad at Philel because Philel got put in a shitty situation. Even more like slavery times 10, pretty much you gotta kill a bunch of people now. So they were mad at her, everybody was mad until Granny came through with the gospel. I guess her voice was hidden because it saved the day. That, and there's one other thing that I really didn't like. Or, as I've said before, this reads like a horror movie novelization almost. And you know, in horror movies, you get the final battle and then you always get one more scare that's pretty much like, oh, we're making a sequel. And that would have been fine if she just wrote like an extra chapter or post, whatever the word is, that's a postlude. I know that's not the word in books and writing, but that's the closest thing I can think of. she ended the book and wrote the end, and then like 5 more question marks. Like the end, question mark, question mark, question mark, and then gave us like another scene of essentially the slave master getting ready to come back.
Yeah.
That hurt my soul. I was like, no. But outside of that,
Book was great.
book was amazing.
I liked every character in this book. I'm trying to figure out the best character. To me, was Joan, the real estate agent.
She's only in it for 30
It doesn't matter. She sold the whole book. Right away, she said, "You don't want this house." Really, I want this house. No, you don't want this house.
I love Paul because Paul was such a man in like the best, and like mostly the best ways. Like he wasn't abusive. He was skeptical, but he still tried to support his wife as much as he could. But he was just funny to me. Like there's a point where they're cuddled up, and she's like, "You don't believe me about the ghost?" And he's like, "I don't. But I'll protect you, and if there's a ghost in the house, I'll make them pay rent." And I was like, yes, that is black love right there. I was like, that's black love to a T. I found it hilarious that he had loved this woman who was like an extremely successful writer and never read one of her books until the ghost stuff starts happening. And he go to work and like open one, like, maybe I should read these shits. And then he find out they fired, so he read all of it. And I'm like, yo, y'all been married and got a kid. Mm-hmm. You ain't never read her book.
I don't think they said how long they were married, though, did they?
I think they were relatively newly married. Not crazy new, but I don't think it was a super long
I'm still going to give it to Joan. Because not only did she say 1,000 times, don't get the house, she ignored all signs while she was going through the house. She said, "Oh, door slammed, we're gonna go. I got a phone call, I'm going outside."
Yeah, Joan definitely was like, yo.
She was outside looking at the door like, "What's up?" I'm outside. I told y'all to get the house. You want the house still?
She told him not to get the house, but she definitely ignored everything while she was giving him the tour. Like, yo, that door just randomly opened. You said it never opens. Well, I guess the shit just opened today. I don't know. I ain't never seen no shit like that.
Your hands was oily, you know?
I give you that, and I like Cecile, and there's a twist with her character that I won't give away, but I didn't like the twist.
Oh, Cecile's cool too. It's always nice to see the all-knowing, all-seeing character who comes out of nowhere talking shit.
Yes, that was pretty much like, and
yeah.
That was one other, the final thing that I'll say that I didn't like was, because Paul and Cecile are my favorite characters, I feel like Paul should have recognized that Cecile was always there to do something good or to be helpful. Mm-hmm. I guess she was a weird old lady, but every time she showed up,
he said, "Nah."
Something good happened, and Paul was like, "Well, keep her old ass away." And I'm like, but if every time she show up, things go great, why do you care?
I like the fact that she fixed a lot of stupid and bad horror elements that are on TV and movies, like, you know how the real estate agent always just sells the house and doesn't tell you anything. Off the brick, page 1, you don't want this house. You don't want this house. Nobody wants this house. That's why everybody wants to move out. She said it like 10 times. I like that part, but then she still kept traditional elements in there, like to make it realistic, like how the husband doesn't necessarily believe his wife, but eventually starts to see stuff and then believe it. Because in most movies, husband or wife will not believe their spouse for the whole movie until something happens to him. I was like, but she still kept that in there and made it more realistic than it is in a lot of movies. So I feel like she kept a lot of traditional horror elements in there while fixing other ones. I'm a big horror movie fan, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that from page 5. I said, yes, this is the one.
But so what would you give it out of 5? Now that we can get to it, since you was talking about a 4.9.
4.9.
I'm gotta give you a 4.5. It was a great book, but that ending just really hurt my soul.
Yeah, that's why I was 4.5.
Because reading it, this is one of those books that I got to like page 200, and I saw I had like 150 pages left, and I was like, all right, I'll read like another 30 pages and put it down for a bit. But when I got to that 30 pages, I was like, nah, I gotta keep reading. I'm too close. I need to know. I gotta know what's gonna happen. Mm-hmm. And for that last 10 pages, I was like, for real, yo? For real. I read all of here. I wanted to see a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But a 4.5. And you got a 4.9.
Oh, you're 4.9. And that's based off of just the end. Everything else that possibly was a con, I can overlook the family reunion. Because black family reunions they're not planned anyway. He gonna say get out, but it's 30 people outside.
I get it.
And Paul was not the meanest guy in the world.
He wasn't.
So he was stern. He wasn't really mean.
I give you that.
The ending, I'll just give her that. The ending 4.9. But I will be reading the next book. You know, when the white man comes back for revenge.
Yeah, when the white man come back, it gotta be hard.
They better not. Everybody better not be grown. I want some young black girl, big eyes, seeing some shit.
You want the baby, like, you want in toddlers or elementary school, like, yeah. But definitely, bring him back with a vengeance. And that was the best part. He's not in it a lot.
Right. And please, for the love of God, my only other request. Bring back Joan, the real estate agent. She got more stuff to do.
Oh, she don't.
Yes, she does.
She sold him the house.
No. See, look, you gotta catch this stuff. And sometimes we skim over some stuff. Joan was holding the baby. Remember she came back to hold the baby? Okay, so now she's affiliated. Bring her back.
You can't just be letting everybody hold your baby.
Yeah, she gonna come back a couple times, see what's going on. I need to see Joan just on the sideline saying, not giving a fucking saying, well, you know, shit, told y'all motherfucker to buy the house. 20 years later, I told y'all 20 years ago I bought this house. You bought the house. I just want to see a couple lines. You bought it. Told y'all to buy it.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for writing this, Audra. This was great.
Yeah.
Let us know when the sequel drops, and we'll review that too. Some more bookmarks. Everybody support. Follow her. What's her Instagram? I'm going to put the Instagram in the comments. I feel really bad for not remembering what her Instagram is. Follow the Between the Reads podcast. I'm pretty sure at Between the Reads on Instagram. And then you can get to her page.
Mm-hmm.